Did you actually choose the way your life was supposed to go? Or did it kind of just get handed to you? College, job, stay, be responsible, be practical, support the people around you, and don't want too much. Sound familiar? That's what we're going to get into today. Hi, I'm Trish, and this is Just a Number, the podcast for women 40 and up who are ready to stop waiting and start building from everything they already know. Part business, part unlearning, part confidence reset. Because you're not starting over, you're evolving with intention. We're talking lived experience, career wisdom, passions, and hard-earned perspective, turned into content, courses, and offers that actually help people. We're not here to play by the rules. Let's build boldly, teach what we know, and make it count. Welcome to Just a Number. We're going to talk about the rule book, not the one you wrote, the one that got laid out for you before you were old enough to really know what you wanted. And what happens when you finally look up one day and realize the life you've been building, it just doesn't quite match the person you've actually become. Most of us didn't choose our starting point. We inherited it. And it showed up in different ways depending on where you came from. For some, it was the straight and narrow. Go to school, get a degree, get a job, stay with that job, work your way up, and retire from it. Stability, security, don't rock the boat. That was the whole thing. For others, it looked completely different. It was be a good partner, be a good mother, hold everything together, make sure everyone else is okay. Your wants, your ideas, your ambitions, those come after if there's time. And then there were the women who had something they really wanted to do, something creative, artistic, unconventional, something that felt like theirs, and got quietly talked out of it. Be practical. That's not realistic. You can explore that later in life, maybe once everything else is sorted. Or maybe it was even quieter than that, just a low hum in the background. You have a good life. Stop wanting more. Just be grateful and don't be difficult. These things weren't always said out loud. Sometimes they were just the air in the room, assumptions so baked in that nobody thought to question them. And underneath all of it, for women especially, there was almost always this undercurrent. Be agreeable, be supportive, don't take up too much space, and whatever you do, don't want too much. Most of the people who handed us these rules, they meant well. Our parents, teachers, people who loved us. They gave us the plan that worked for them, or the one they wished they'd had. But that roadmap was drawn for a different time, a different economy, and a much more narrow idea of what a woman's life could actually look like. Now, a lot of us followed it. We did what we were supposed to do. We checked the boxes. We showed up. And we still ended up somewhere that doesn't quite fit. That's not failure. That's just what happens when you spend years living by someone else's idea of what your life should be. So what does it feel like when you stay in the playbook longer than it's working? When you keep trying to make it fit even after it stopped making sense? It feels like being unappreciated, like anxiety you can't quite put your finger on, being emotionally drained in a way that a good night's sleep doesn't fix. It feels like you're just going through the motions, showing up every day for something that used to feel like enough, and now just feels hollow. And a lot of us take those feelings and turn them inward. We decide something must be wrong with us. We tell ourselves we're being ungrateful, or we just need to push through, or that everyone feels this way sometimes. We minimize it, and we keep going. But those feelings aren't character flaws. They're signals. They're your whole self telling you that you've outgrown where you are. The woman who followed all those rules and still feels like something is missing isn't broken. She's just outgrown the container she was put in. There's a difference. And there's grief in all of this too, something we don't really talk about enough. When you start to admit that the plan isn't working, there's a real loss there. You're not just letting go of a situation. Sometimes you're letting go of an identity, a story you told yourself about who you were going to be, the version of your life you thought you were moving toward. That's real, and it's okay to feel it. But staying stuck in a situation that no longer fits isn't loyalty. It's not honoring the people who gave it to you. It's just staying, and that has its own cost. For me, by the time I was in my early 40s, I knew something had to change. And it wasn't that I wanted to throw away everything I built or pretend my experience didn't matter. I just didn't want to use it inside a structure that no longer worked for me. No more boss. No more someone else's environment, someone else's terms. I wanted some freedom and flexibility. I wanted to actually own what I was building. And it took a big nudge from someone I trusted, who was actually my boss at the time, to make that move. But going out on my own ended up being the biggest and best decision I've ever made. Not because it's easy or perfect, but because for the first time in my life, what I was building was actually mine. So let's talk about who's actually standing here right now. Whoever you are, and whatever your version of that rule book looked like. The woman on the other side of all of it has something the 25-year-old version of her absolutely did not have. Decades of real experience, hard-won perspective, a much clearer sense of what she's good at, what she can't stand, and what she's done carrying that was never really hers to begin with. She doesn't owe anyone an apology for not being what they expected. Not her parents, not her younger self, not her employer, her partner, her community, or anyone else who had an opinion about how her life was supposed to go. And this is true no matter which version of the story you've been living. Whether you spent years in a job that paid well and slowly drained you, whether you poured yourself into raising your family and taking care of everyone else, and you're ready, actually ready to do something for yourself now, or you're that creative who's been putting what she really wanted to do off for so long that it barely feels real anymore. And whether you never quite fit any of the options that were laid out for you, and you're still figuring out what yours actually looks like. Every single one of those women is sitting on something worth building from. It might be professional expertise, or it might be years of life experience most people haven't accumulated yet. It might be a creative skill that got shelved for too long. It might just be that you've spent decades figuring out how people work, what they need, and how to actually help them. That's not nothing. That's everything. And here's the part that is terribly underrated, in my opinion. You know what you don't want. The 25-year-old you didn't know that. She was still figuring it out, still trying to prove herself, still running on someone else's timeline. The clarity you have now, she didn't have access to that yet. So the question isn't, how do you get back on track? The track has changed. The real question is, what does the version of you who's actually here want to do with all of it? Once that lands, the next question is practical. Okay, so what now? This is not about blowing up your life, or dramatic gestures, or burning everything down and starting from scratch. It's about deciding, maybe for the first time, that you get to write this part. The old playbook said, stay steady, keep your head down, don't create waves. And honestly, that served a purpose for a while in a different time. But women right now are doing things that playbook never accounted for. We're building businesses from expertise spent decades accumulating, turning what they know into courses, coaching, creative work, services and products, real things they actually own. Teaching what they know on their own terms and their own voice without asking anyone's permission. And it's not just the career women doing this. It's the woman who spent 20 years at home and is now building something from everything she learned about managing people, households, relationships, and chaos. It's that creative woman who finally decided her work is worth something. It's the woman who maybe never had a tidy professional title, but has more real world knowledge than most people in any room she walks into. The thing they have in common is they stopped treating what they know as just background, as just history, as just their life. They started treating it as the thing they build from, because that's what it is: what you know, what you've lived, and who you become in the process. That's the asset. And there are real ways to take that and shape it into something you can teach and sell, whether you want to think it through with someone or have help actually building it, which is what we do. But it starts with deciding that what you've got is worth something, because it is. Nobody gets to hand you the life they imagined for you and call it yours. That's just not how it works. The rule book has a starting point. That's all it was ever supposed to be. The women doing the most interesting things right now, they're not the ones who stuck faithfully to someone else's script. They're the ones who finally got honest about what they actually wanted and started building from there. So sit with this one. If nobody was watching, if you didn't have to explain it or justify it or make it make sense to anyone, what would you actually be building right now? That answer's worth something. Don't brush past it. Thanks for hanging out with me today. If something in this episode stirred something up, if you're sitting with that question or there's something you've been carrying around that you're finally ready to look at, send me an email. The address is in the show notes. I love hearing what's on your mind and what you're considering building. See you next week.